Hello, welcome to Changing Times, Changing Worlds, Otherworldly show. And I am Tchipakkan, your host. And tonight I am the guest, the speaker, as it were, because I didn't get a guest, but everybody's exhausted after the conference. So I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is runes. And I've had several guests. I put in the description on the Facebook description, on the ad on the website, saying what we are. So there are three others that you can go look up easily, and that's a good thing. And the links are there so that you can go look them up. I will probably try to put them in the chat. But first I need to start talking about it because I can't speak and let the co-hosts do some of these other things while we're
I'll keep an eye on everything.
Yeah. So I'm talking about runes for magic and for divination. They are practical. In the chat before things came on, Starwolf made the charming remark that working with runes is about the closest thing you can come to playing with a chemistry set when we were kids. What I generally say about runes and rune magic when I'm teaching it is I'm giving chainsaws to children, because the runes they are symbols. It's a symbol set, and they represent certain magical concepts which have a spirit behind them. I know Galina Krasskova works with the spirits, makes offerings to them. I don't do that, but I do know that the runes are, each of them is kind of a entity in itself. And if you get in touch with that and activate that rune, certain things happen. And they have been doing this for about 2,000 years. So it's fairly easy to tap into it and make things happen. Because they mean certain things, you can also use them for divination. I think in America, or the European English-speaking world, they were mostly introduced through Tolkien in The Hobbit and mentioned later, but not as deeply in The Lord of the Rings, because they talked about the runes. This is not surprising. Tolkien was basically a huge Anglophile, and his writing Lord of the Rings was trying to give them their own mythology, which I think he was successful at doing. Ralph Bloom, on the other hand, had heard the runes and apparently had some kind of a inspiration to write them down and sell them. Personally, I have a feeling that I am detecting, this is UPG, unverified personal gnosis, that the old man, Woden, had his hand in that, and he said, I think more people need to know the runes. And so he found this guy who is open to being motivated, gave them to Ralph Bloom, and he got them out there in cute little bags with rune tiles and a little book. I think that was the late 70s, maybe early 80s, and he got, basically we'd heard of them before. If you were at all interested in Northern magic, you knew about the runes, but it exploded at that point, and now there's a lot of really good books out there. I like the one. I like Steve Pollington because he is an Anglo-Saxon scholar, and I am more interested in Anglo-Saxon than other aspects of the runes. More people are interested in the Norse runes, the Icelandic runes, than in the Old English. But so it's a personal bent. There's a lot of people out there. if you want just the facts, Swain Plowright's book is scraped down with a lot less UPG involved. I don't see that there's anything wrong with having a personal relationship, but I once went to I think it was an East Coast thing, where Freya Aswin, Jane Sibley, and Diana Paxson were all three talking about the runes together for 2 hours. It was magnificent. Ooh. And they completely had different takes on the runes. Freya Aswin's was very, very feminist, and her books, Leaves of Yggdrasil, is very a lot of the interpretations are feminist. On the other hand, I am going to say that over the last 50 years, we have a lot of things that I have read that indicate that you can't, our interpretations are interpretations. At some point, somebody had collected all of the Old Norse writing, and here's all the words we know, and I think something like 50% of them occur 5 times or less, and 30% of them only occur once. So if they only occur once, our interpretation of what it means is based on getting it out of context. And so there is a whole lot of different people reading things with different context and getting completely different interpretations. That said, I think we can go with what we've got, but if you have a strong feeling that it's going to work better a certain way for you, you have every right to go with that. So, but I'm sure the people who have tuned in for this want to know about the runes, so I should I want to tell you more about the runes. I was play with the runes to put them up for you. And I am not entirely certain how to do this, forgive me, but I am going to try and put them up. And if I can't, well, we'll just plow onward from there. The runic series, like the English letters, which came from the Hebrew letters, are called alphabet because it starts with alpha, beta, gamma, and that would be Greek. It would be Aleph, Beth, Gimel for the Jewish, but there was a progression, and they came down to, and the Greeks and the Romans, and then somewhere around the 3rd century, the 200s, you get the Futhark, which is the alphabet, as it were, it's a symbol set of the Northern Europeans, the Germanic tribes, that because the first letter is Fehu, and the second letter is Uruz, and the third letter is Thursaz, and the fourth letter is Ansu. So it's Futhark is the first 6 letters. That's where you get it. When it got to the Anglo-Saxon area, the monks got to England and said, "Oh boy, a new alphabet! Yay, we can use this." But the 4th letter was Ansus, and that meant God. And they no God but us. So they switched it to O instead of A, and made it an O for mouth, and kicked the As down to the extra letters. So that's a thing. If you're dealing with the food, so that's what the Futhark came from. When I joined the SCA and started studying this, they said, we don't know. It might come from the Greek, it might come from the Roman, it might come from the Etruscan. In the 90s, I believe they found out that it seems to have come from the Etruscan. We don't care, really. The question is, when you're doing divination, does it work? When you're doing magic, does it work? That's the real question here. So, and if it is working, then let's not. That's all we need to know. So, there, I think I've got that. Let's see if I can put it up. This is, I think, from, if it will come up, it's from, this one's from Wikipedia, so I know I can use it without being jumping on anybody else's copyrights. If it comes up. And how do I get it on there? I'm distracting myself. Anyway, so that's not good. How do I get it on? Darn. I apologize for being a little bit inept when it comes to technology. I'm great at fortune telling. Let me just talk about the runes. And at some point you can, this will go up on YouTube and you can follow this and get a set of the runes and follow it yourself. So I'm just going to run through the runes row by row. One of the cool things about the runes is that they have a certain order, as the alphabet is A, B, C, D. This is, well, and forgive me if I slip from Anglo-Saxon to Norse and back. I started learning it with Anglo-Saxon. So Fia or Fehu is the first one. Ur is the second. Uruz, Thorn or Thurisaz is the third. Then Ansus or As is the fourth. Who cares what the numbers are? The first one is wealth. Fe comes from, it's associated with the word for fee. It is the word for wealth, which was at the time deeply associated with your cattle. It was your herds, and it is also associated with gold. So it's both gold and cattle. Either way, it doesn't make any difference. It has to be moving. It has to keep circulating. If you do not move your herds from one place to another, they will die. You need to have new grass for them. If you do not cull the older cattle and have new ones being born, whether they're goats or cows or whatever, the herd will die. If you do not take your money and circulate, if you put it into a cave and sit on it like a dragon, or if you put it into a vault and sit on it like Scrooge McDuck, it will become cursed. You have to keep it moving. As Dolly said in Hello, Dolly, money, like, if you'll pardon the expression, is like manure. It's not worth a thing if it isn't being spread around, causing young things to grow. Fehu is wealth, but it is specifically movable wealth, and it is wealth that has to keep circulating. One of the rune poems says that it is the cause of grief among kinsmen. Yes, if somebody is trying to hog all the wealth, it will cause trouble. If it is being spread around, helping everybody, it's a source of joy. And that's the first one, starts out with wealth. The last one in the Futhark is it's Othal, which is immovable wealth. So it goes through in a lovely progression. The second rune is Ur or Uruz. The Z's on the ends of these come from the Victorian scholars who were trying to come up with names. We have no idea what the names were, but modern people are using these names, so we're going to go with them. But Ur or Uruz is the aurochs, and an aurochs is a big cattle. It is, let's picture a bull the size, or a cow, the size of an African elephant. it was huge. It was a sign of virility for somebody to be able to kill one. And so of course they wiped them out by the 16th century, at which point they were like, oh no, how shall we prove our worth? And started to backbreed them from when the occasional aurochs got into their dairy herds. And so they're trying to recapture the mighty auroch. But it is vitality, it is strength, it is health. It is used as a healing room because it is vitality. It's kind of the closest thing that we've got to chi or ki in the northern culture. It's raw animal power. It's very cool. So it's just just picturing a look at your room and picture that you've got a cow that is so big that it probably couldn't fit in your room. That's a hunk of beef. And so that is strength, and it gives strength. The next one is thirst, and the thirst is or thurisaz is it is a giant. It is the sign of the Ettins, or the race of Jotuns that Thor was often killing. And most of the heathens in the modern world think of them as the ultimate enemy, but there is
nope, not this one.
No, not me. They're just another race. Let's face it, when it comes down to it, the closest thing that I can get to describe it is if you got the Greek gods when you were in high school, and they had the Titans and the Olympians, and the Titans came first, and they really didn't interact with humans much. And then you had the Olympians, who were their children, and who did, but the Titans and the Olympians kept intermarrying. So they weren't that much different. Well, this is like the Asgardians were often interacting with Frey was married the most beautiful woman in all the 9 worlds, who was a Jotun. So some of them say that they're evil, and I say that's ridiculous, but you're not going to change anybody's idea of their theology, so I'm going to drop it. But other people's, because it's thurisaz, they associate it with Thor, and they say it's Thor's hammer. It is essentially great power, because the Ettins had great physical and magical power, and they really didn't care as much if you get in their way. Think of storms and earthquakes and the natural forces of the world. You get in their way, it doesn't matter whether they like you or whether you're not, you're going to get wiped out. So think of them as that. When the monks got a hold of it, they decided to call it Thorn as a reference to Christ's crown of thorns, and so that would be tribulations that have been given to you by on high. So, but then you get to the fourth one. This is kind of a progression. If you think of the Fehu as the beginning, and then Urus as the great cow Athuma, and then the Jotuns were born first, then you get to the Asgardians. As and Anzus is the gods, and specifically the god which they think of as Odin, as the chief of the gods, which didn't really happen until about the late Viking period. So Snorri was going from his best information in the 12th century, but it wasn't really. The Allfather was Tyr during most of the early, from the 5th to the 7th century. So, and most depictions of Tyr had 2 hands up until the late 6th century. So, and that switched at that point. Odin started moving in as Allfather. So we'll see nothing is static. The runes changed, the gods changed. Let's not worry about it. So that was us. And so that was, and especially as it is associated with Odin, it is associated with wisdom and communication. And so the ability to communicate, because he was a good talker. Move on. The next letter is Rad, which looks like an R, and it is sometimes described as a wheel, or for riding. It is a vehicle. It's a way of moving, and it's a, I don't get wheel out of it. Nothing about an R looks like a wheel, but it is a way of moving along. It's associated with the god Frey. Again, if it's on Zeus, it's kind of more in the Frey and Freyr and the Vanir, and there are stories of the god's image being traveled from village to village to bless each village on a wagon. It's the god's wagon. It's anything moving. So think of it as a way of getting to place and combining things. I also feel that I get that it's anything rhythmic, because as like wheels turn and you get, and so music is involved, but I'm not, I can't remember when I started thinking that, so I'm not sure whether I got it from a book or whether from it's a UPG. So take that with a grain of salt, and at least an awareness that it may not be exactly, but it works for me when I'm doing magic with it. So that's all I really need to know. Then you get to Ken, which is the letter K. It's the K sound. They don't have a C like we do in English. You get your K and you have your S, and that takes care of all of it. And you don't need to worry. Ken is known as a torch, and as a torch was used for its energy, its brightness, its illumination. It is light. When you have fire, you can see better. It fills the darkness. But think about your basic 9th grade science class. It's bringing energy from within. A piece of wood has potential energy in it. It's taken it from the sun and brought it into the plant, and it is stored in that. And when you set it on fire, it releases the warmth and the light. So it's from within. It's energy that's coming out of you. If you go down to the end of the second 8, you get to sigil or Sewilo, and that's the sun. And that is also energy, but it is energy being projected onto you from the sun. Energy, heat and light coming from without, whereas Ken is heat and light coming from within. Okay. Then the next one is Gifu, which confuses a lot of Americans because it looks to us like an X. But it is definitely a G, the G sound, and Gifu or Gibu, and it is often translated as gift. But it would be better to be thought of as balance, because in the way that the Northern Europeans thought, it is a gift required a gift. You had to balance things. It was all about maintaining balance. And of course, it's a great way of talking about balance. It shows that it is for partnerships. It's for a good marriage. It's for any blessing. It's to maintain balance is to have it. It's right. In Norse, a gift required a gift. And the Havamal actually says it is better to offer too little than to give too much. The gods really resent it if you give them a great offering, because that kind of puts an obligation on them, and they sure hate being manipulated like that. So let us not think of it as a present without any strings attached, the way a lot of people refer to it. And the and the last letter in the first row is wine or wunjo, which is it looks like a little flag. It looks like a P, again confusing for something else, but it's a W or it's a V if you're writing with it. And let's face it, these probably started. Okay, when you go back to the petroglyphs, things that were scratched into rocks in up to 3 centuries BC, those are probably magical symbols. But one that started circulating as a alphabet, it was for writing, and it was used for writing, and that was the primary use of it. My guess is that that's about the time the Romans came and were causing a great deal of trouble for the Germanic tribes, and they saw how useful the having the ability to written words were to military utility. So they pulled together a way of writing using their local characters, and as they say, they probably based it on Etruscan. But that essentially, I think the timing, they were being in a lot of contact with the Romans, and then suddenly they started writing. Yeah, I think they were doing it because it was really important for them to write. But so wine is for joy or for happiness, and it's one of the simplest runes that hasn't got any other meanings: pleasure, joy, happiness. It's a lovely rune. So it's very clear. That's the first rune row. The runes are generally in 3 lines of 8 each. They're called 8 AETT or AITT, depending on where you're from. And that has nothing to do with the modern word 8. It simply, and in the younger Futhark, that one of the rows has got 5 in it. So it's not there because there are 8 of them. It's just the word that means family. It's the family group. And that first one, with all the mythic interpretations involved, is about the god's rune row. The next one is about the natural world's rune row. Any questions before? Because I've been kind of blithering without corrections,
No,
Starwolf.
I've been putting some comments up of things that I know from just working with the runes for many years.
And I see that. Current crypto Lutheranism. Yes, there certainly is. Primal fire. Yeah, primal fire is a good thing.
Yeah, the concept of it being both enlightenment and destruction, because
well, let us get to the second row and enlightenment destruction. Hagel or Hagelaz is a symbol for hail or hailstone, and it is a symbol both for destruction and for giving you a fertility. It's like clearing the air. Not unlike the tower card. You must tear down before you can build up. The hailstones come down and they destroy your crop, so you're going to starve, but then they fertilize the field, so the next crop is going to be better. It's a very mixed blessing, and it's Hagel is hard. Jane Sibley says it is associated with the thunderbolt. It is certainly associated with storms. The Hagel, if you think about a hailstone, and I think because if you just break one in 2 or hold one in your hand, you can see that it's built up. I think that even in the ancient days, they could tell it was built up in layers and layers and layers. And it is another one of the aspects of it is it's kind of a matrix upon which you build something new.
And a lot of times when I'm reading, that is not, it's disruption, but it's the disruption of old patterns. Breaking the old ways of doing things in order to either innovate or evolve.
Yeah, and so, but sometimes you can't build something new unless you get rid of the old.
Exactly.
So one of the descriptions I remember hearing of it is clearing the air. which is what happens in a thunderstorm. Okay, the second one in that row, the second row is often described as the natural world. And you start out with hail, and then you go to need or Northeast, which is the need fire. And you're going from the ice falling from the sky and destroying things. And then you go to the fire, which is saving your life because it is the fire you absolutely need to survive. It is the sign of what you are going to, it is the bare minimum you must have. It is what is absolutely necessary. If you are doing a reading, it means that what you need. But it is a fire sign, and so it's kind of a nice back and forth.
Analogous to the fire drill that you can use to
it is kind of an image of a fire drill. It's like a vertical line with a slightly diagonal short line across it. It is then the next one, it goes back to ice again, and it is and it is ice, and it's kind of seen as an icicle. It's a vertical line with no other embellishment, and it means ice, which represents cold and stasis. And if you've frozen the rivers, no boats are going to go up and down them. It's although some people say, yes, but if the river is frozen, you can cross it. With the risk, you could fall on your ass or fall
the river is frozen. You can also run sledges up and down it because
so
rivers were roads, whether they were flowing or not.
Yeah, and ice is good for freeze your meat and make it last for the rest of the winter. So, but it is definitely it'll hold things. It's definitely, you get your ship caught in the ice and not good. But why the ships come out and go in the boathouse over winter. But that's Is, and then the fourth one in that row is Yara or Gur or Yar which is, it means year. Yara, the G was often used, the J or J was thought of as a Y sound. So, but it's year, and it is a progression of time. It is also often used for harvest, but it is specifically things coming as a result of what you've already done and things coming in their own good time. If you plant seeds and you can't be picking up, digging them up to see if they're sprouting yet. You can't do that. You have to let things progress in their own time. And if you do that, if you work with it, you will get your harvest, and in good time, you will get your rewards. So that's what Yara represents. It represents a full year if you need a time measurement, and it also represents harvest. The central rune, the axis, as it were, of the entire runes is Ya, E-A-L. Oh gosh, what is my notes? I had my notes here. It is the yew tree. It is the Irminsul or Yggdrasil, or it is the great world tree, the axis mundi, about which the world, if the previous one was the year and it was the cycle of the world, this is like a vertical cycle. It's life, death, rebirth, and it's definitely a death rune, but it is death with rebirth kind of built into it. It is a protection rune. Great combination, protection and death. Yep. They don't think like we did, but it is active sense. Protection.
You being one of the better woods for making bows, it becomes also very protective. And the fact that there isn't any part of it that's not actually toxic.
It is toxic. That's what we make tamoxifen out of, which will save people from cancer. So it is and is often planted in graveyards. So and it also comes back. You cut it down, it will come back again. So you get a whole lot of life and rebirth. Now, and it makes bones which will kill people, and so there's a lot of life and death and rebirth. The next one is Purth or Pirthro, which is a mysterious rune, because while we have it mentioned in the Anglo-Saxon rune poem, all we really know about it is that it is shaped like a cup, as it were, and that it makes the sound P. Other than that, everything we know about it is the poem that says that Purth makes glad the hearts of men when they sit drinking in the mead hall. Well, goodness. As it is shaped like a cup, many people have suggested that it is the dice cup. They've also suggested it's a womb. It could be what makes men who are sitting drinking happy, their fellowship of their friends, the fact that they don't have to. It could be your mead cup, it could be your dice cup, it could be the bucket that you're going to piss in so you don't have to go outside. It can be the open arms of a woman, it could be the open legs of a woman. We don't know, but modern people who have used it use it for luck successfully, use it for finding lost objects,
for friendship,
which probably comes from that poem. And you get the interaction there of what people believe becomes more real. So but we do know that people have successfully used it for luck. And my goodness, if you get into Norse philosophy, Haminya and Orlog and Weird, wow, deep thoughts. And not surprising that it is on the other side of Yara from the center pole. The next one the next one in the rune row is Algis or Yal, which is the elk or the sedge plant. It is another protection rune, but this is more of a passive protection as opposed to active protection. The Ia is more hit the other guy first or block, and the Yalks is more of a armor and or put a barrier up between. But it's also symbolizes an elk, and it is a more passive protection, but really powerful. You want to talk protection runes, that's the one almost everybody is going to use. And it seems a lot safer than going for the life and death and hope for rebirth protection. You're just like, okay, let's just keep the bad stuff away from me. And the last one in that rune row is Sigil, which I mentioned before. It's the sun, which we will point out is female in the Norse pantheon when personified. It is beneficent. It is energy flowing down from you. It is the energy, the blessings of the god. And going from this, we're going from Hoggle in the beginning of the rune row to the sun in the end. This is all nature, the natural world, and it ends up with the blessing. It is a blessing sign. If you stick four of them together, you get the swastika or the Fjärfot. It is a really great blessing sign, and we like to. Admittedly, the Nazi Party managed to do a huge desecration on all things heathen, and shame on them. But we have to deal with that now. But so that is the second. That's the natural world rune row or family. Third rune row. The first two of them are Tyr and Bjork. Tyr stands for the god Tyr. It looks like an arrow or a spear point. It is all the things that you would expect of positive masculinity. It is all the good things. It is justice. When Tyr stopped being Allfather and started, he just became the Lord of Justice. He was the god who stuck his hand in the wolf's mouth to be able to bind him. He's the god of self-sacrifice. He's going to do whatever it takes to take care of people. Tyr was often found inscribed on funerary urns. Tyr was found inscribed on weapons. I am going to say, the archaeologists say, it's a victory rune. From the warriors I have known in the SCA, in the police, in the army, it probably, when you put a Tyr on your weapon, is not it's going to beat everybody, but please let me use this in the cause of right. I don't want to hurt the innocent with this weapon. Tyr was the god of justice. And one thing, if you invoke Tyr energy, you better be sure you're right, because he is not biased. He's going to give you what you deserve. You're going to get what's coming to you, so you better look and see whether your thoughts are pure and your actions in the past will justify a positive outcome, because Tyr will be doing that for you. Bjork is the perfect pairing of this. It is the monks called it birch tree, but it's basically, and it's the one that looks like a bee, sounds like a bee, looks either like boobs or perhaps from a woman from the side with a big pregnant belly and boobs. Bee is all the positive attributes of feminine deity, and females, and it's generally referred to as one of the goddesses. There's goddesses, many goddesses will step into that role to say, I am femininity as it ought to be, nurturing, all of the good things about runes. Moving on is Yah, which is a horse. It looks like the modern M, so we keep forgetting, but it's the E sound. So if you're reading it, and that's where I start the kids with using the runes to write with. You get a lot of giggles out of being able to it's a secret code they can use, and you can write. The teacher is it butthead on the board, and usually the teacher won't be able to tell what it says. But Yah is a horse, and think of it as this is basically animal kind working with mankind. This is when you're working with nature, when you're working with the natural things in the rest of the world, you're both stronger. The horse is directed and it can get more things done. The human can get there faster, can carry more things. When you work with nature, you work better. You can run faster. The next one is like the horse. It's like an M, but it crosses, so that it's mankind. The word is man or manas, and it's about humans. It's about humanity. It's not man. If you want man as masculine entity, that would be Tyr. If you want man as all of mankind, that's man. So it's human. It's working together. It's working together as a community. Think of it as what differentiates humans from other animals. Well, could be the way we think, could be the way we can cooperate and get things done. You need to the more research the more we learn about the natural world, the more we find out that other animals do all the things that we used to say only we did. So we can't let go of some of our ego in that area, but it is humans and what we're capable of, especially in groups. And let's not say in large groups, because humans in large groups tend to get stupid. But
it also represents kind of our ability to pack bond, to use a term, and not just with people, because I know face it, we've all at one point or another pack bonded with our car.
Yep. So, although I would put your bond with the car more under horse, and but but the next one after that is Lagu. Well, for goodness sakes, if you can come up with a symbol that has more aspects that you can think of than water. Lagu or lagus is water, and it is often referred to as the symbol of the human subconscious because it's deep and you can't see what's at the bottom. It can be a still lake that is mirror smooth. It can be the pounding surf. It can be the waterfall. It can be a stream that you can't step in the same water twice. It can be the ocean. It can be, I mean, water. My goodness gracious! It reflects. It takes the shape. We can't live without it. Jane's always saying that it is inevitability. There is nothing that can always keep water out. Water joins and mixes everything. And therefore, when you are using Lagu for magic, you have to use your intent to say the aspect of water that you are thinking about. Otherwise, it might very well pick a different one if you are not focused. So that's I hope I have time to talk more about using it for magic, but I haven't yet gotten through the end of the So after Lagu, we get to Ing. Ing is another name for the god. Ing is Frey, he of the great phallus. He's a god of fertility. And it is a god of, it is kind of the beginning of the inception. I mean, women carry the baby, but the seed is planted by the god. It's kind of a beginning thing. I kind of like the image of it as a double helix. It is sometimes written simply as a diamond shape, which I think of more as a seed, but it is creativity, and it is the beginning. It's the start of something.
It's also a double Debo if you look at it.
It is indeed. So it's speaking of which, then you get to Dag or Dagas, and that is another timing one. It means day, but it looks like your Gibu with closed ends. And therefore, but it is, and also having to do with balance, but it is specifically a tipping point. It is that point. It is liminality. It is that point when day turns to night or night turns to day. It's when the point where morning turns to afternoon. It is the point when dark turns to dawn or day turns to twilight. It is the point of change. If you invoke day, it might be, I want something to happen within a day. Or maybe this is the tipping point. This is the point. We're going to take it to right here. If you're balancing, how many of you, I don't know, they still have seesaws on playgrounds? You could stand in the middle and not make it absolutely balanced. And it is that point. That point is delicate. That point allows change. It is the most magical place. If you're in a doorway, you are not in one room or the other. You're not inside or outside, but you're on that thing. So that's the liminal place. That is the point of difference. And in some people, when they're doing the Futhark, they have it as that's the last one. Others have the last one being Othal, which to me works. I mean, they both work because if you're using Dog as the last one, you are then able to start the cycle again. But on the other hand, if Othal is the other side, you can look at this. This is your solid. This is the this is your inherited, this is your sacred, what you've gotten. It is both the land. A lot of people in the modern world do not have that connection with the land that we used to have. But what your land, which you got from your ancestors, land that you lived on, your parents and your grandparents are buried in, your connection with the land was a very sacred thing. And it's also not just land, it's what you inherited from your ancestors. It's kind of, do you have blue eyes? That comes from your ancestors. Your brown eyes comes from your ancestors. If you have blonde hair or red hair, if you going bald, you got that from your ancestors. What you get from your ancestors, it's what you have that you can't give back. You can't pass it. You can't move it around. This is the wealth that is part of you. It is in your DNA. It is in your family. This is it can carry debt as well as wealth, but it is that is the balance to the wealth that we started out with. Then there are what they call the Anglo-Saxon or the Anglo-Frisian rune row, which are simply a bunch of other runes which have been added because nothing is static. And these are symbols that are going to add things and they're going to use them. So you have, when they kicked us, God, because that's a heathen god and we don't want him there, out of the first rune row and replaced it with os, which is a mouth. And so therefore it had to do with communication, because it could be either a river mouth or a human mouth. It's anything that stuff flows out of it. So so they replaced that, but they moved os down to the the fourth row that they tacked on. They had uk, which is oak, and the oak was is an oak. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of something you can build with. They had ear, which is the sign of a bow, which in Magick is very good for focus, and we make anti-ADD amulets with it. There is ear, which is the gallows or the single tree. That's a little gadget they use to hang an animal up while you're gutting and skinning it. It's a death rune.
But also a connection rune.
Then there's Eeyore, which is the serpent, which is sometimes considered like the Jormungand world serpent. That is beyond this, there is nothing. It's another death rune. It's then there is Calc or Chalk, which is looks. You can really tell that was developed later because it's essentially an upside down algae. It's basically what we think of as a symbol. But it's associated with the Grail myth and with finishing things, and therefore it's a good rune for penetrating mysteries and achieving your goals and for actually completing things. Then there is the Gar, which is named for Odin's spear, which is a silence. It's actually a rune that means very much like when Ralph Bloom put out his rune tile set. It was in a little 5x5 tray that they packaged in a box that went with the book, and there was a blank rune, which is very good for if you lose a rune, you can write it on it and replace it. Or it is frequently used by modern rune people as this is the gods are saying, that's it, we're not going to talk anymore. And that's essentially what Gar is. It's like, nope, we're not talking anymore. Then there's Quarth, which is the sign for bonfire, bonefire, and it is the ultimate destruction fire. And there is Stan, which I find amusing. It is a stone, and it can be either a stumbling block or it can be a building block. But it's shaped like an ingot, so I think that's kind of funny. But that is a quick whip through of the runes. Again, I will take a quick pause for. Are there any questions? and then I'll talk a little bit about using the runes for magic and divination. When I use the runes for divination, I use rune sticks rather than the tiles that Ralph Bloom got out. And a lot of people will have some here. I usually have runes lying around. They will put them on little things. Now you can put them on anything. I personally prefer them on something that is biological, whether it is a piece of wood or a bone or a piece of ivory. Please go with mammoth ivory. They're already extinct. Or old keys off of the veneer off of
piano.
Old pianos. Don't use anything. Or teeth. I've seen runes made on elk teeth.
One of my sets is done on a set of faux elk teeth.
And I think you actually ate through enough chickens to make matched bones for a chicken.
Yep.
Or a bone.
That was like a year plus of eating an awful lot of hot wings.
but there you go. But I think that the wood and bone and other materials like that, I've seen them on nuts, on acorns, will work because I think that the plants are a lot more receptive to human interaction and intent. And whereas stones move slowly, think slowly, react slowly, and are less likely to take your intent. If they're using your intent, they're humoring you, which thank goodness
they also have a habit. If you're running a certain amount of energy through them, when you're doing divination, they can go pop.
And I've seen that happening.
Yeah.
So we have so I like the system where I use sticks, twigs. I my personal sets that I make, I take a piece that's about that big around and use a froe or a combat knife and split it into different ones, then sand the heck out of it, because the last thing you need during a reading is a splitter. And then you can either inscribe or you can put write on them. You can make a perfectly good set by using popsicle or craft sticks and a magic marker and put the sticks on them. When you use a stick and you toss them, they will toss usually into other forms. And if you look at those forms, you can get a nuanced reading, because you might have a tier that is made up with out of a sigil and a purth, and you can work it out, and you get a much more nuanced reading than you can just with, okay, what is it, right side up or is it upside down? I have an attitude. I believe that there is the whole concept of the merc stave or the upside down runes. When they were used for writing, they often would go back and forth, zig and zag, and turn upside down, right side up. They didn't care. So that's not something that
that seems to come out of people who started with tarot, and you've got to have an inverted version of something.
And so okay, but if you want to do it that way, now then, once you know what they are, once you have gotten to know them and you can work with them, you can get into you can use them to wreak magic. Now people will use tarot cards to do magic with too, but the runes have been used for magic since their inception. Before there was the Futhark, there were symbols that we are now using as runes, carved into rocks, used for stuff. If you're reading books on the history of runes, they will probably mention Tacitus Germanic, which was written in 69 AD. And he talks about how the Germanics will inscribe symbols on pieces of wood, toss them on a white cloth, looking to the sky, reach down, pick 3, and interpret them to find out whether they should go to war or whether it's time to plant or something like that. And so that is a indication that they were using sortilege, but it does not necessarily mean that they were using runes. So that is just a thing that I'm going to yes, that is a hill I will die on. It is not necessarily, as far as we know, the first runic inscriptions that were written with them as a writing form weren't until the 3rd century. So that was another 2 centuries after that.
There's a distinct possibility that every tribe had a different symbol set for when they were doing the drawing of the
I mean, humans have symbols, and they do that. It's a thing that humans do. And I think maybe dolphins too, but they don't write. But so they have these. So you've got these symbols, but in the surviving lore, and I'm going to remind you, historians and archaeologists, well, historians especially, point out that you lose 90% of all of the knowledge from a time period every 200 years. So what we only have 10% of what was going on in 1823, and so we only have 1% of what was going on in 1623, and we only have 0.1% of what was going on in 1423. So if you get back to the millennia ago, then you're working with not a whole lot of stuff. So we have, but of what we have left, there are 2 instances of people reading runes. We have them doing divination, but not reading runes for divination. But we have 22, I think, or is it 23, examples of them using runes for magic. And I know, because I use RúnValdr, which is a magical system using runes, that they work beautifully for magic. This is why I refer to it as giving chainsaws to children. The runes know what they're doing. You invoke that rune and it will go and do that thing. So you had better know what that rune does, because it's going to do the thing that it's been doing for 2,000 years. So if you are using a rune like Lagu, there's only the water, that is only what the and it's got too many meanings. You better focus very intently on which aspect of that rune you're using. If you are using runes, we have lovely one of the stories about using runes for magic is from Egil the Skallagrimson, and he went to he was stopping at somebody's house, and the woman of the house was ill, and they said, well, have you tried runes to heal her? And she said, and they said, yeah, well, we put some runes in her bed, but it seems to have she's just gotten sicker. And he got the piece of whalebone out of her bed, and he said, it made a lovely little poem that said, people who don't know what they're doing shouldn't be doing rune magic, and scraped the runes off into the fire, carved in some new runes, put them in her bed. She got well and got up and cooked for him. So
I hear that one a lot from some of the more magic phobic.
Yeah, it is a so we know you can undo it, but you have to scrape it off, you have to burn it, you have to make it not. Another thing you can do to put to energize a rune is to put some of your energy, your chi, your mana in it. Frequently done in the stories by putting some of your blood in it. And yes, indeed, putting some of your blood into something will energize those runes. I would not recommend doing that unless you're trying to cause a mighty curse on somebody, which is usually what they were doing in the stories. You put your energy into it, it's not something that you want somebody else holding and tossing if you're doing readings for them. So don't be putting it on your rune sticks. You want to invoke some energy, use red ink, use dragon's blood ink, use you could, or and in this day of AIDS, you don't want to have blood around, so you could use your spit, which I don't think actually is a whole lot better. It does carry viruses and things, but yes, you can energize it by putting some of your energy in. I'm personally very fond of RúnValdr, which we have done 2 shows about. Do I have the ability? I will. Starwolf, I know you like to leave at 9, so I probably ought to be finishing up here.
Well, food is already ready. I just have to throw it in the microwave. So
okay, well that's useful.
My life got much more flexible when I retired.
Yeah, I suppose if you have to get up to be out of the house, you had better have that. Now, where is? I'm going to try and find the links and put it in the chat, because when we're done, if you go to the chat, you can click on the 3 dots and find that which you and then you can save it in your computer and find things. The links are also on the in the description in the blogs on Changing Times CTCW .net, so that you can find them there. And so I have links to the rune discussion with Starwolf and Jane Sibley on runes, which was in September this year. The rune discussion was January 5th last year. I've got Rodney Cox talking about RúnValdr in 2021 in April. And I'll see if I can get those links for you so that you can follow them and watch them on YouTube. This one will also be up on YouTube, so you too can see them and go back to it and perhaps follow it with a written futhark. As I say, that the runes that Jane tends to use the younger futhark, which was more used in the Viking period. So that is something. Okay, here is the link for that. Okay, I'm going to put those back, but I think I should, unless there are any questions, I should probably close off because I've done the hour now. So are there any questions? Thank you for coming, those of you who
welcome
live. And thank you for your comments, Starwolf, because that was useful. Starwolf is another one of the people I know who uses runes, both for divination and for
making things go boom sometimes.
And for making things go boom. Do you use things to make things go boom? And I
doing my best Bugs Bunny imitation.
I use it for I use the way I use a lot of other things for healing. And when I was looking at in RúnValdr and saying, well, how are you going to use Hagalaz or how are you going to use Thurisaz for healing? But on the other hand, if you have a tumor or if you have something that needs to be broken up and washed away, combine the smashing aspect and Hagel would be perfect for that.
Yeah.
So it's
kidney stones, bladder stones.
If you get a kidney stone, boy, you want to break that up as small as possible. So thank you very much. If you want to know more about runes, we could get more specific in other areas. I could talk again about RúnValdr, but we've done it once. But so look at the RúnValdr before you'd say, yes, we need another one. But as we have at Changing Times, Changing Worlds, one of the things about Changing Times, Changing Worlds is that we want to get advanced. We want to go beyond the beginner level. So we can go on to intermediate stuff if that's what you want. So let us know if you want something, and thank you very much for joining us. And where is the stop recording?